The onslaught of political advertising is about to hit full stride, and usually it's clear what you're seeing. But now some clever political operatives have figured out a way to promote candidates and agendas by disguising it as local news. In Michigan, dozens of websites branding themselves as local news recently popped up, with names like Western Wayne Today, Ann Arbor Times, and Great Lakes Wire.
As you're scrolling through Facebook this morning, you may see sites advertised as local newspapers when in actuality, they're not.
Matt Grossman of Michigan State's Political Science Department first noticed something fishy after landing on one of the sites.
These folks seem to have gone out of their way to make it look like this was an unbiased and a local source rather than a political, national, conservative source.
Politico picked up on this a year ago, noting that seemingly harmless local news websites were in fact promoting certain candidates, most of them conservatives.
None of these stories, were kind of blatantly false. They're relying on real information, but they certainly came from a conservative perspective.
A recent investigative report by Axios says while backers of these fake websites used to keep their identities secret, now they are more out in the open.
Priorities USA, which is one of the largest super PACs on the left, is being very transparent and saying, look, we're going to be telling stories that matter to us, and we're going to be buying Facebook ads to promote them.
Axios' Sarah Fisher says agenda-based websites posing as news is partly the result of the dearth of local news outlets in so many cities and towns.
Sort of the big picture here is that local media is dying, and we have partisan groups that are supporting new local media efforts.
So how can you tell what's real and what isn't? Follow the money.
See who funds those ads or who runs the page, and just double check and make sure it sounds legit to you.
Easier said than done. Well, that's one of the benefits of being in a two-newspaper local market, and we've got other local newspapers around, many that are still somewhat alive. But, this is what happens when we've done many stories about the dying news business, and newspapers just go. There's cities and towns all over. There's one in Michigan. I can't remember the name of the town where the student newspaper at one of the colleges is the only newspaper in town. But some of these things. This is very clever, actually, in my opinion, because it really looks real, and the titles make it seem real. You wouldn't really know unless you dug deeper into it.
So Boston has two newspapers, not counting the Boston Star, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. My recollection is that this actually started much earlier, in going back even to the 2016 campaign.
Yeah.
And there were, which wasn't really mentioned here, but some of these sites started up there, and I got involved with it because I'm involved with the news literacy program and talking to students about how to confirm that something is coming from a legitimate site. And that's when you started putting the students into going to look at the websites of these organizations. And that's when some of the kids would discover that these stories were appearing in fake newspapers that were coming up on Facebook. And Facebook is what made this all fly, I think, is that these stories and these publications pass off as legitimate when they're on Facebook.
But thank goodness Mark Zuckerberg really cares about our country and our discourse and everything. It's really a relief to know he's on the beat. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Roy. I remember years ago seeing a website that basically was mimicking ABC News. They had the circular logo with the ABC in it, and then only in the tiny print do you realize it had nothing to do with ABC News. So this has been going on. It's escalating. There's nothing that can be done about it. This is one instance we have to turn to the news consumer and say, you've got to lift a finger here and rent a vowel and be a discerning consumer. If you won't make a minimal effort to differentiate between garbage and a legitimate news outlet, then we're lost. And kudos to that local news station you saw that was reporting aggressively on what was going on in its own area. We all should be doing that.
I'm often asked whether the giant corporate chains that own so many local papers, if I'm worried about them imposing their political views on all their papers. And at least to date, they don't. They just want to extract the last few dollars they can out of these papers and then move on.
Some big television chains do that, like Sinclair.
Well, yes. This is different. This is secret. It's surreptitious. And the entire point of this is political. And as we've all noted, it's been going on for a while, and it gets hypercharged by Facebook because this shows up in your feed. Facebook runs on anger, and so the angrier you get, the more of it you see. And I agree with Jon. People have to be discerning about this stuff.
And I do think that the technology and the capabilities of being able to produce what looks so legitimate. I mean, in the past, when someone, if they had to print something out, you would realize they used a copier, right, to make some kind of fake-looking newspaper. But now it all looks very professional, so it's difficult for the reader to discern. And frankly, to your point, I think we are lost. I don't know. There's a way that we can reverse this because the public, they don't have time to sit back and figure out what is real and what isn't. Perhaps the only thing we can do is have some kind of seal of approval on legitimate news sites
like
or
Twitter.
Right, exactly. It's a verified website that at least we can point to and say, this is a verified website, those others are not.
I would like to challenge that. If you've got the time to wallow in Facebook and ingest all the crap they're feeding you, you've got the time to invest a little effort in making sure you're getting news.
Maybe they have the time, but they don't want to.
No.
Okay, well, that's their
There's time to
problem,
wallow
and
in
ours.
Facebook, and then there's time to be, let me be academic here and figure this out, where it's coming from.
Or
That one's a little harder.
How about let me not be a dupe?
Yeah, being a dupe is easier for them, I think.